Tonight, GM gets help from union workers and investors, but all roads still lead to bankruptcy, and the government lays out a roadmap for getting there as quickly as possible. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, crisis at Fort Campbell. The Army base in Kentucky tries to stop an epidemic of suicides, 11 so far this year. A godsend for the newly unemployed, free health care on wheels for children of the recession. And discovering a diamond in one of the roughest parts of town.
When I walk past this field every day, I can say, I helped build this field.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone. We're beginning tonight with General Motors. Some of its bondholders agreed today to take GM stock, which may not be worth much, instead of the billions the company owes them. And it looks like the UAW will approve a deal that gives the union a stake in the company in exchange for concessions. But none of this will keep GM from filing for bankruptcy next week, though it could make the trip quicker and less painful. Anthony Mason explains how it will all work.
The government released a roadmap for a GM bankruptcy today. The plan laid out in an SEC filing would give the government a 72.5% stake in a new GM. But the administration says it could cost taxpayers another $30 billion. Washington's already invested more than $19 billion to keep GM's motor running. And in December, President Bush insisted
they must pay back all their loans to the government.
But today, a senior official in the Obama administration said that money really did not accomplish anything. The government sweetened its offer to the bondholders who own GM's debt today. While one coalition of bondholders accepted the new deal, another rejected it.
I guess we would have to prepare for the court proceedings and hope that we will get fairer treatment in the court of law.
GM is expected to file for bankruptcy by Monday.
It's going to be very painful, but hopefully it can be very quick as well, and we can come out with a better, stronger, profitable General Motors in the end.
Meanwhile, in a New York court, the Chrysler bankruptcy is moving quickly.
It's going at light speed, absolute light speed.
Chrysler dealers have protested being shut down.
It's not fair, and if it wasn't in bankruptcy court, they couldn't do this.
But with Chrysler and GM, the government is driving a hard bargain.
They're providing the money, and they're the ones who are ultimately going to decide how that money is going to be spent.
The creation of a new Fiat-controlled Chrysler could be approved as early as tomorrow, while administration officials said a new GM could emerge from bankruptcy in 60 to 90 days. Katie?
Anthony Mason. Anthony, thank you. Now to the men and women who build GM cars and trucks. Cynthia Bowers has more about what they were doing today to save the company and their jobs.
At union halls across the country, UAW members like third-generation GM employee Brian Yarbrough are casting votes they never imagined.
I don't think any of us, even, just 2 years ago, could have believed that we're in the situation we are now.
Did you vote yes?
I did vote yes.
Because he says keeping GM alive is the only way to keep a roof over his family's head.
We're just at this point trying to make sure that we can survive and keep the house and provide a good home for our son.
65,000 union workers are being asked for sweeping givebacks, including eliminating dental and eye care benefits for retirees. Current workers will see no cost of living adjustments and no performance bonuses, and must promise not to strike in the next 6 years. In return, GM agreed to keep open 2 of 16 plants targeted for closure and offer buyouts to all blue-collar workers. They'll give the union a 17.5% stake in the company and more than $4 billion in IOUs to pay for health care starting in 2013.
What's the value of the union?
UAW President Ron Gettelfinger bristles at recent criticism, especially from bondholders, that the union is getting the best of the deal.
I don't know of anybody that's happy. Certainly, we're not happy, and having a ratified agreement going into bankruptcy in this process is critically important to us.
Having an agreement in place before bankruptcy means less chance the court will impose even more painful concessions down the road. When we first met Brian and Sabrina Yarbrough last year, they told us they were fearful, and they still are, because Brian's plant could be one of the 14 closed down.
I can't even watch the news because if I watch it, I just cry.
They're hopeful the vote Brian didn't want to make today may make the difference in his family's future. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Detroit.
Now to a very different story, what's called a stand down at Fort Campbell, Kentucky to deal with a suicide epidemic. 11 soldiers have taken their lives already this year, the highest number of any U.S. military base. Today, Don Teague tells us all regular duties at Fort Campbell were suspended so soldiers can get the help they need.
Why are so many soldiers committing suicide at Fort Campbell, Kentucky? It's a question that so far has Army commanders baffled.
I wish I knew the answer to that question. I think every one of us wishes we knew the answer to that question.
The extraordinary decision to put the post on stand down means halting all regular training for 3 days to focus on suicide prevention.
Suicides on Fort Campbell have to stop now.
I think it's a good idea because, I mean, it's needed. A lot of soldiers have a lot of problems.
Bring it in strong, let's go!
Fort Campbell is home to the 101st Airborne Division. Many of the division's soldiers have had multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan.
On the ground.
But officials say only 6 of the 11 suicides involved soldiers who've been in combat, and only 3 had multiple tours.
There's not really a clear linkage to our deployments. Clearly, they're a factor. But when you look at the suicides we've had, about half of them were never deployed.
Still, there are some common threads emerging among the Fort Campbell suicides. Most are white men between 19 and 25 years old, at the lower end of the military pay scale, and 70% had relationship problems. Whatever the cause, Maggie McCoy hopes they address it soon. Last month, she told CBS News' David Martin her husband Carl made an appointment with a mental health counselor at Fort Campbell, but help wasn't available.
They called and canceled. They didn't have anybody to see him. That was the day before he killed himself.
Well, the stand down at Fort Campbell began yesterday and will continue until close of business tomorrow. In the meantime, the post commander is addressing all of his soldiers in large groups, expects to have spoken to all of the soldiers by the end of next week. Katie?
Don Teague. Don, thanks very much. Now to rising tensions over North Korea's nuclear program. U.S. forces in South Korea were put on high alert today, one day after the North threatened to attack the South. And in Washington, the Army Chief of Staff said the U.S. is prepared to fight if war breaks out, though he acknowledged it would take some time to bring in troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. From the Pentagon tonight, here's David Martin.
U.S. forces in Korea went to watch condition 2, one step below the highest level, as North Korea followed up its nuclear test with warlike threats. In practice, that means stepped-up surveillance by aircraft and ships. Confrontations with North Korea are nothing new, but former Bush administration official Dennis Wilder says this one's dicier.
And it's dangerous because we really don't know what the North Korean leader is looking for at this moment.
Is Kim Jong-il, who suffered a stroke and still appears frail, trying to manufacture a crisis to rally his people behind him? Is he trying to test the new Obama administration? Or is he determined to develop nuclear weapons and the clout that comes with them? Whatever Kim's game, the U.S. is counting on UN sanctions to change his mind. But North Korea is a uniquely tough case.
It is hard to deal with a regime like this. It's hard to find the points of leverage. Unlike the Iranians who want to join the world, the North Koreans, right now, that regime doesn't really care about being part of the world.
China, which does $3 billion worth of trade and supplies 90% of the North's fuel, is one point of leverage. But China can't afford to be too tough.
If North Korea were to implode, China would find 2 million people quickly moving to their borders as refugees. They don't want that.
As a rogue state, North Korea is hard to deal with, but as a failed state, it would be a nightmare. Katie?
David Martin at the Pentagon tonight. David, thank you. To another hot spot now, Pakistan, and a warning today from Taliban leaders there. They urge civilians to evacuate large cities, threatening major attacks. Just hours later, 2 bombs went off in a crowded market in Peshawar in northwestern Pakistan. At least 6 people were killed. The attacks are seen as retribution for the government's assault on Taliban forces in the Swat Valley. Meanwhile, coming up next, right here on the CBS Evening News, children of the recession. How do you protect their health when you lose your insurance? Nothing is more important than the health of our children, but this recession has forced some parents to make some very tough choices. In a CBS News poll, roughly 1 out of 10 said they had delayed medical or dental care for their children. And in families making less than $30,000 a year, it was 1 out of 5. Making it worse, 3,000 children a day lose their health insurance. In partnership with USA Today, Kelly Kobiella continues our series, CBS Reports, Children of the Recession.
All right, I'll be there in a minute.
At first blush, you'd think Shauna Terry does pretty well. She drives a nice car, has a nice house.
It's a big house, huh?
Trouble is, this house isn't hers. Shauna is a realtor here in Austin.
It's an upgrade so that you've got that tile look.
Desperate to unload any one of these high-end homes in the middle of a market bust.
And when a house doesn't sell, you don't get a paycheck. Don't get a paycheck.
Okay, this is 12.
With her six-figure annual income a distant memory, health insurance for this single mom and her 2 daughters has become a luxury they've decided to do without.
We weren't needing to go to the doctor, so it was like, all right, should we have insurance premiums or should we do food, you know? So unfortunately, we decided to kind of let that lapse.
So you rolled the dice?
I rolled the dice.
While Shauna was worrying about her daughters staying healthy, her youngest was worrying about her.
I worry a lot about her and what she's going through.
Does she know you worry a lot?
No, I don't really show it.
But 9-year-old Alyssa couldn't hide an ear infection last March. Shauna had no choice but to take a $100 trip to the doctor, plus antibiotics. When it came to the follow-up visit, she balked.
You waited out a little bit just to kind of see, you know, do I absolutely need to do this, you know?
Within weeks, Alyssa was sick again, this time with aches and a 104 fever.
Oh, it's starting getting worse.
Did you feel like you didn't want to go to the doctor?
No, I wanted to because I knew they would take care of me and get me better.
Was there any mom guilt? Oh, yeah. Very big. You know, feel like you didn't do what you're supposed to be doing for your children.
That's when the school nurse told Shauna about this, the Children's Health Express van, a pediatrician's office on wheels with no insurance forms and no fees.
How's your ear feeling?
There are 37 more mobile medical clinics like this one in 15 states across the country. Originally intended to serve low-income, underprivileged children, these mobile medical units are seeing more parents like Shauna come in every day who've lost their insurance, lost their job, or both.
I didn't want to be looking like we were taking advantage of something that wasn't meant for us.
We say to them, we'll be your pediatrician until you're in a more stable situation.
The Medivans are provided by Children's Health Fund, co-founded by pediatrician and Columbia University professor Erwin Redlener.
When we have a situation like this recession, where we have a mounting up of barriers for families, it really increases the chances that children will slip through the cracks.
One safety net is supposed to be the federally funded CHIP program, recently reauthorized by President Obama. But of the estimated 8 million children currently uninsured, CHIP is expected to cover only half. Finding out whether your kids are eligible can be complicated and time-consuming. And Dr. Redlener says kids can't wait.
For children, a temporary loss of access to health care can have lifelong consequences, because in that absence, we may miss something very critical to a developing child.
Well, that looks pretty good.
And even though her ear infection is all but gone, Alyssa Terry says she still doesn't feel normal.
When you're sick so long, when you get back to yourself, you don't feel the same. You feel like someone different.
Really? What do you mean by that?
You just want to walk when you usually run, and you don't want to do your sport and anything like that. You just want to relax.
A big change for something that started so small, and another consequence for children of the recession. Kelly Kobiella, CBS News, Austin, Texas.
To find a mobile health unit near you, you can go to cbsnews.com and simply click on Children of the Recession. And one more health note tonight. New government guidelines say the key to a healthy pregnancy is not to gain too much weight. A woman with a normal body mass should gain 25 to 35 pounds during her pregnancy. Overweight women should gain less than 25 pounds and obese less than 20. But underweight women should gain up to 40 pounds. The Institute of Medicine also says women should watch their weight before they get pregnant, and the idea of eating for two, very outdated. When we come back, an economic bright spot. From CBSMoneyWatch.com tonight, the job picture is improving while the Labor Department says another 623,000 Americans joined the line for unemployment benefits last week. That was 13,000 fewer than the week before. They join a record 6,790,000 people already collecting. Meanwhile, President Obama has said the stimulus will create or save 3.5 million jobs by the end of next year. Not soon enough to help some hospital workers who were about to be let go. They needed help stat. Then Richard Schlesinger tells us something amazing happened. And that's tonight's Bright Spots.
Hey, cutie. The staff at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston made its name by caring for its patients, but these days they're caring for each other.
If you let them show it, they will do miracles.
The hospital needed a miracle when it came down with a $20 million deficit. It looked like layoffs were inevitable. 6,300 people are employed full-time at this hospital, and 600 of them would have lost their jobs. And most of those jobs would have belonged to the lowest paid employees, people who needed their jobs the most.
Do you want tomato with that?
Ada Azotam works in the food service department.
$20 million is a big number.
It's a big hit. It's a big
That worry you?
I was afraid for a little bit.
What's for lunch? But CEO Paul Levy tried something only a few executives have.
How are you?
He let employees see all the numbers and asked for everyone's help.
The response was truthfully as heartwarming as you could ever imagine.
It was just, doing the right thing.
How are you feeling?
The 13 department heads, like Dr. Dwayne Persley, took pay cuts that totaled $350,000. That's about 10 jobs saved.
You have expenses. You have, I have 3 kids in college.
3 kids in college. And other doctors took out their checkbooks.
The checks came in, some $500, some $10,000 or $15,000.
That raised another $326,000. And there were more sacrifices. Senior management took pay cuts. Everyone agreed to forego 401k matching payments, postpone annual raises, give back some raises already awarded, and reduce sick days and vacation time. They even canceled the annual barbecue. The layoff list shrunk from 600 to just 70. Ada Azotam was safe.
100%. I'm not worried about my job.
Nobody wants their friends and colleagues to be laid off, and everybody's willing to give a little to make that happen. Why doesn't this happen more often in America?
It could. Levy has heard from several companies interested in his prescription for easing the pain of bad times. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Boston.
This Bright Spots is sponsored by Miracle-Gro Garden Soil. Turn bad soil into great soil. Start right. Finish big.
This is the year of the new ballpark here in New York, Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, and another you probably never heard of opening tonight. Here's our national correspondent, Jim Axelrod.
The Little Leaguers in East Harlem aren't going to let a little drizzle bother them tonight.
I'm here to play, and that's what we're going to do.
Not in this neighborhood, where crime and poverty are the usual facts of life. Not a sparkling new baseball diamond. This was their field just a few months ago. Nothing but weeds, ditches, and trash. Entirely unplayable. Journalist John Frankel was bothered every time he drove by.
It just began to burn inside me, and I said, why isn't anybody playing on this empty lot?
Frankel didn't just keep driving. He raised $40 grand for new sod. Word got out that someone wanted to fix up the ball field. And soon Frankel had something more valuable than even money. An army of volunteers.
Nearly 50 of them. They tore down rusted fences and busted benches, leveled the infield, and picked up piles of trash. Enrique Torres grew up here.
How's it look?
He painted the storage shed.
It's real special. It's real special.
Something about a ball field in the middle of a city.
I mean, you know what? I'd rather see this than a damn condo or,
Everyone wanted in. Even the firefighters of Engine Company 58, one of the busiest in the city. who found time to water the field. Dan Cunningham lives 60 blocks away, but he came to get the infield ready, which he knows how to do since he's the head groundskeeper for the New York Yankees. Maybe Tyrone Griffin explains it best. He's lived here 40 years, out of work, but smiling tonight.
When I walk past this field every day, I can say, I put this field down. I helped build this field.
In East Harlem, an eyesore has been restored to its proper grandeur.
What's it like to have the nicest field you've ever played on 2 blocks away from your house?
It's the best thing that ever happened.
And we've all been reminded of the unifying power of 2 words in America. Play ball. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.